Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tony. I am currently doing, playing Super Mario 64, or Super Mario World. I keep saying 64, it's not Mario 64. Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo, and doing story times on my channel. I say on my channel like you don't already know that you're literally, I think it must be too early. I'm used to recording these videos in the afternoon, and it's like in the morning. My brain's still foggy. Let's, okay, just die then. Anyway, today I'm going to tell you guys about my children's preschool experiences because they were vastly different. Well, I'm going to tell you about the children, sort of. I'm obviously going to leave any and all identifying information out because I am talking about preschool age children. They're not preschool age anymore, but they were. My daughter and my niece are the same age, and so they went to preschool at the same time in the same class. We had a lovely experience. We actually, the girls stayed friends with a lot of those kids for quite a long time after preschool. Some of them my daughter still talks to. I don't know if my niece does, but I know my daughter still talks to some of those kids. Obviously small town, so a lot of them went to the same school afterwards and stuff. But anyway, but then my son and my nephew, who are both the same age, which, by the way, shout out to my nephew. I don't remember if my son, shout out to my nephew for suggesting this story, and actually the last one. I forgot to shout out my nephew for the last story too. He suggested that one, and he suggested this one that I'm telling now. But there were two children. My nephew and my son went to preschool 2 years. My daughter and my niece only went for 1 year. But the boys went for 2 years. And the first year, there was a little boy. I'm not going to say his name, obviously, for privacy reasons. But he was a handful for the teachers. He was one of those kids where they would have to call mom multiple times a week to pick him up because his behavior was just that out of control. I believe it was his second year of preschool when the boys had their first year. And he was very sweet to me because I don't know why. I guess just because I was nice to him, because I recognized that he was a little boy. He was a 4-year-old kid who just, plus I met his mother, so I kind of get it. But anyway, this little boy was a lot for the teachers, and they were clearly kind of over him by the time, it was the second year. So I think at this point they kind of knew what was gonna happen with this child. They knew what to expect. And so there was a lot of phone calls home. But the craziest thing that happened with this particular little boy was one day, because I used to go up there and volunteer all the time. Because the preschool that my son went to and my nephew went to was very heavily reliant on parent volunteers for a lot of different things. So I would volunteer as often as possible. I did the same thing when my daughter was in preschool. I volunteered constantly. But by the time my son was in preschool, I knew the teachers there pretty well, so volunteering was something that I really enjoyed doing. And so I walk in one day and I find out that this little boy had brought a knife to school. Now, it was a plastic knife, but they treated it like it was a real knife. Like, they took this very seriously. I don't remember if he was fully expelled or if they just suspended him for a bit, but I do remember that it was not taken lightly, even a little bit. Like, because it scared the children. These were 4-year-old kids. They didn't know the difference between whether this was a real knife or a fake knife. They're 4. Um, and so, the children were scared. And so I'm sure that they notified all the parents, but they definitely pulled me aside and told me about it when I got there. Because my son was quite quiet. He was like a very quiet kid who just kind of, did what he was supposed to do, and he was very, very quiet and not really. Oh, that was lovely. I did a very good job on that. But anyway, so they were concerned about him basically, and he was okay. My child was perfectly fine, but I'm very glad that the school was proactive with that, because that's not a good situation, And I mean, yes, it was a fake knife, it was a plastic knife, but it could have been a real one. And then what happens if, you know what I mean? Like that's a scary situation, especially preschool. I mean, these were 3 and 4-year-old children. But anyway, so the following year that child had moved on to kindergarten, and my son ended up in a different class because there were 2 class options. There were half day and full day. And he ended up going into the all day class, which was fine. And you guys will hear the story of that. That's a story by itself too, what happened with the all day class and the teacher and all that. So I'm not going to get too into detail with that part, but I will tell you guys that it being an all day class was fine. Was the difference. But there was a little girl in that class who was another one of those. Well, that whole class was kind of out of control. And again, I will tell that story in the next video. That is a different story that I'm telling. But there was one child in particular, a little girl, who was just very wild, running through the class. There was no control with her. She would scream and just freak out, and she was very violent. I don't know what was going on in her home life or what the issue was. I don't know if there was some sort of behavioral issue. I truly don't know, because other people's, other children's medical records or whatever are not my business, and I certainly wasn't going to ask. But again, I volunteered there quite a bit, and there was a day that I was there volunteering that this little girl was being kind of crazy, and there was one teacher that usually was pretty good at helping her calm down. What this teacher would usually do is try to hug her, hold her, not really restrain her, but sort of restrain her, but do it as a hug, and usually that would help calm her down. Well, in this particular instance, this child was running through the room and grabbed this teacher by her knee and twisted. And I don't think that she intentionally was twisting to try to hurt the teacher. I think that just happened to be how it went. But I'm standing next to this teacher and I hear her knee pop, and she just goes white and screams. And this little girl blew this teacher's knee out. And it was terrible. I had to help her walk to a chair. I had to give a statement to the head of the school, or it was terrible. I could not believe that situation. And I know that the child did not intentionally hurt that teacher, but it was bad. And yeah, but both of those students ended up in the same elementary school as my son. And the boy, I believe, my nephew just told me he had the police called on him for something. I think he was just being so completely out of control that the teachers couldn't handle him and they had to call the police. Or maybe he was threatening somebody, or I don't know. For whatever reason, the police had to be called on this child at one point. I don't think he was like doing it, like being dangerous. Like he wasn't like threatening anybody, I don't think. But I don't know what the deal was. I know my nephew told me, but I'm not gonna lie, I do not remember. And then the little girl at one point was suspended for a while because she stabbed another student in the face with a pencil. The rumor was that she stabbed this child in the eye. She did not stab this child in the eye. It was just next to, like, it was in her face. It was probably kind of close to her eye. And I'm sure it was absolutely terrifying for her parents to get that phone call. And I'm not, like, trying to, I'm not trying to, what's the word? Like, I'm not, why can't I think of the word for it? Not discount, but, like, I'm not trying to act like it wasn't a severe situation, because I'm sure it was. But, you know, small town and rumors, and a friend of mine just was like, oh, little girl stabbed this kid right in the eye and she almost lost her eye. No, that is not what happened, actually. But it definitely was not a good situation either way. Like, she definitely did do something wrong. Thankfully my children have not been, or my child has not been, like, I think that my kid actually is, like, somewhat nice to these kids because they all went to preschool together, so, you know, you have that we went to school together bond, so I think that probably helps. Oh my gosh. Did you see that? It was, like, off camera. I couldn't even jump on him. But yeah, so that's the story of two children that my kids went to school with that were a lot. But again, I was perfectly nice to these children. I got along fine with these children. They seem to like me okay, but I think it's because, again, I'm not going to be mean to children. They're children. You know, they clearly have something going on at home if this is how they're acting. And let's face it, my nephew was definitely not the... He was kind of violent sometimes himself, and I know why. I know what he had going on at home, and I know what was happening with him. So obviously, I knew his situation, so I'm not going to hold it against him for acting out the way he acted out. In my nephew's case, I was able to do something about it. In these other two kids' cases, I'm obviously not able to do something. I don't know their families. So, you know. Anyway, that's it. Thank you to my nephew for suggesting this particular story. Again, most of these were suggested by my nephew with a little help from my son. And now tomorrow's story is once again about this preschool, but this one is about the teacher that my sister and I got fired. Whoops. So follow my socials. They're below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!